It is a dark, quiet morning in April 1945 in the city of Milan. A yellow wooden truck pulls into a deserted square, and soldiers toss a heavy, formless pile into the center of the roundabout. When the sun finally comes up, the residents of the city realize they are looking at 18 bullet-riddled bodies. One of those bodies belongs to Benito Mussolini. The crowd that gathers doesn't mourn him. They spit on him, kick his corpse until his face is unrecognizable, and string him up upside down from a gas station canopy. These are the exact same citizens who just a few years earlier treated him like a living god. How does an undisputed, absolute ruler engineer his own transformation into the most hated corpse in Italy? To understand his fall, we have to look at the wreckage of post-World War I Italy. The country's economy was in free fall. Inflation was wiping out savings, and thousands of veterans returning from the trenches found nothing waiting for them but massive unemployment and violent political strikes in the streets. Mussolini saw an opportunity in that chaos. He realized that when people are terrified and a country feels like it's unraveling, citizens will gladly trade their democratic freedoms for someone, anyone, promising the illusion of order. He started by branding the existing democratic government as weak and ineffective. In 1919, Mussolini founded the Fascist Party, building his platform entirely around aggressive nationalism and absolute obedience to the state. To enforce this vision, he organized unemployed veterans into a private paramilitary force known as the Blackshirts. They became his personal muscle, deployed to physically beat down socialist rivals, crush labor strikes, and terrorize anyone who spoke out. By October 1922, Mussolini was ready to challenge the state directly. He mobilized 30,000 supporters for the March on Rome, using this massive projection of force as a calculated bluff to bypass the democratic process. And the bluff worked perfectly. Terrified of a full-scale civil war, King Victor Emmanuel III refused to declare martial law. Instead, he caved to the pressure and simply handed the role of prime minister to Mussolini. The king's decision effectively installed the fascists at the head of the government. In the end, the established order chose to capitulate to the threat of violence rather than defend the existing system. Once inside the prime minister's office, Mussolini needed to consolidate control. He introduced the Acerbo Law in 1923, designed to legally rig the parliamentary system in his favor. Under this new rule, whichever party secured the largest share of the popular vote, even if just 25%, would automatically be granted 2/3 of the seats in parliament. A prominent socialist leader named Giacomo Matteotti stood up to expose the corruption and voter intimidation behind this power grab. He was kidnapped and murdered. In the fallout of the assassination, Mussolini dropped all pretense of democracy. He outlawed rival political parties, dismantled labor unions, and stripped away all press freedoms. Mussolini's rise demonstrated that a dictator could secure absolute authority by turning a country's own legal mechanisms against itself. He kept the constitutional framework in place while stripping away its entire function. With the government secured, Mussolini turned his attention to the minds of the Italian people. He crafted a meticulous public image, adopting the title Il Duce, the leader. State media pushed the myth that he was a divinely appointed figure who could never be wrong. Recognizing the deep religious roots of the country, he signed a treaty with the Catholic Church in 1929. By making Catholicism the state religion, he effectively bought the Church's silence, legitimizing his authoritarian rule in the eyes of millions of believers. He then targeted the next generation. The state required boys as young as 8 to join youth organizations, where they were trained in military drills and fascist ideology, breeding an unquestioning crop of loyal warriors. Fascism, as Mussolini designed it, demanded total psychological surrender. It controlled not only how citizens voted, but what they believed and who they prayed to. Authoritarian regimes built on the projection of absolute strength share a fatal flaw. They require constant military conquest to validate their power. In 1935, Mussolini ordered a brutal invasion of Ethiopia, dropping chemical weapons and burning villages just to flex Italy's military muscle on the world stage. This insatiable need to project dominance led to a disastrous geopolitical calculation. In 1939, Mussolini tied Italy's fate directly to Adolf Hitler by signing the Pact of Steel, a military alliance that dragged his unprepared country into the Second World War. On the battlefield, the illusion of Italian supremacy quickly dissolved. Mussolini's forces suffered catastrophic defeats in Greece and North Africa. By 1943, his military was crippled, and Allied forces were launching an invasion directly onto Italian shores. The entire foundation of fascism relied on the myth of an invincible, unwavering state. The moment that myth met the brutal, grinding reality of a global war, it shattered. Facing total collapse, the very king who handed Mussolini power 21 years earlier finally dismissed him. By April 1945, the former dictator was wearing a German helmet and a heavy coat, hiding in the back of a transport truck as he made a desperate run for the Swiss border. He never made it. Italian partisans recognized him during a roadblock inspection. The next day, Mussolini and his mistress were lined up near a lake and executed. When Adolf Hitler heard the news of what the angry mob did to Mussolini's body over the radio in his bunker, he was horrified. Terrified he would suffer the exact same public mutilation, Hitler ordered his aides to burn his remains after he committed suicide. Dictatorships promise absolute order, but they require a foundation of constant violence to survive. In the end, that system guarantees its architects will eventually be consumed by the